Keir Starmer and the Labour Party just took a beating when it came to the UK's local elections. The local elections for Americans out there are essentially the equivalent of our state legislator elections. And the Labour Party has been in power since 2024, when it was swept into power on the heels of the Tories doing a horrible job being in power for, I think it was something like 14 years. But they were swept into power back in 2024 in their general election, and since then, Keir Starmer has continued to run the nation into the ground. The Conservative Party, the Tories, they weren't good at all either. They're not truly right-wing by any stretch of the imagination. And Keir Starmer has done such a horrible job that I believe he's now rated the worst prime minister in the UK's history. Well, you would think that he would resign, and there, of course, is lots of calls for him to resign. However, he is spending his days after his defeat, where the Labour Party lost something like, I don't even know, 1,200, 1,400 plus seats in their councillors' election. He's spending his time now attacking people who are wanting to come to Tommy Robinson's massive rally that they're planning, a peaceful rally, which is a Patriots rally designed to, if you will, kind of stoke the fervor of the British homeland in the face of mass migration from the Third World, and particularly Muslim migration. So now Keir Starmer has not only decried this horrible thing that's taking place, a peaceful rally, but also he is now going to step in himself as prime minister and ban individuals from going to this. Let's give a listen to this. It's honestly off the wall. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, particularly if you're British. What are your thoughts on this subject?
And you'll see it again on Saturday at a march designed to confront and intimidate this diversity and this diverse country. That is why this Labour government will block far-right agitators from travelling to Britain for that event. Because we will not allow people to come to the UK to threaten our community and spread hate on our streets. This is nothing less than a battle for the soul of our nation.
And there you have it. He gives all the same buzzwords that you typically hear the left in the United States give when it comes to, mud defending democracy and nonsense along that nature. Tommy Robertson, of course, has responded, the G that he is. And for people who don't know who he is, he's essentially been involved in politics in the United Kingdom for like 20 years or something like that, mostly focusing in on the issues surrounding mass migration from third world countries and in particularly Muslim migration. He rightly recognizes Islam for what it is, which is a threat to the West. Of course, individual Muslims, that doesn't mean that they can't be good citizens or something to that effect. But what it does mean is that Islam as a system, particularly when imposed inside of a non-Muslim nation, never bodes well by any stretch of the imagination. So he gives us somewhat of a response to Keir Starmer's nonsense, and he says the following.
So, listening to that speech, if you listen to it, they can't stop the rapists, can't stop the terrorists, can't stop the jihadists, can't stop any of them. They're stopping journalists. Journalists coming to cover our event. They don't want the world to see it. They can't stop it. Make your plans. If that hasn't pissed you off enough and you was thinking about coming, sitting on the fence, get your ass into London and send that tyrant a message. No matter what he tries to do, no one's going to be silenced. All right? Make your plans, yeah? See you all Saturday. Imagine the bad day he's having. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, he's a G, to say the least. Now, you can see this is one of the things that's been big on today's news. The UK, government bans 7 foreign individuals from coming into the country. Of course, people do not like this worldwide. This is not something that is definitely popular by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something that I guess he's going to choose to engage in, but it is not popular, to say the least. Now, what's interesting to me about this is in particular, why is he doing this? What are the political ramifications of what he's doing, or what is the goals by which he's actually trying to get by doing this? Because on the one hand, leftists just banning a right-wing person, what good does it really do? It just stokes the, if you will, fires of your opponents. What I imagine he's trying to do is if you look at UK polling when it comes to elections, unlike American polling, UK polling is somewhat accurate. It's actually fairly accurate. And the Labour Party and the Conservatives have both been steamrolled by third parties. The right, Kemi Badenoch, and the Conservatives have been steamrolled by Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, as well as in various areas, Rupert Lowe and the Restore Party. And on the left, by contrast, we see the Greens rising up in a lot of strength. And the Greens are certainly more progressive than Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. And so logic would dictate that, of course, he's not going to be able to appeal to a right-wing audience as a left-wing politician. But perhaps what he's trying to do is save face and keep his job as prime minister and get some of the Greens maybe back on board. Now, whether that will actually succeed or not, I am, of course, doubtful. But regardless, that I think is what he is aiming to do. Now, let's take a look at this. This is what's going on right now. This is fairly breaking news talking about the pressures for resignation that are being laid on his desk.
Well, breaking tonight. Sir Keir Starmer looks set to resign as Prime Minister in this coming week. I know you've heard it all before, but we've seen huge speculation this evening that suggests the Prime Minister's time has indeed run out. Wes Streeting has told Sir Keir Starmer that he is preparing his case to be the next Prime Minister. The Telegraph has indeed disclosed this evening. Former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has also posted on X this evening demanding that Starmer allows Andy Burnham to return to Westminster. She's also criticised a so-called toxic culture in Number 10 and said it might be Labour's last chance to reverse its fortunes. And a couple of hours ago, journalist Dan Hodges has reported that a cabinet minister has informed him that, quotes, they believe Keir Starmer will announce he's standing down this week without the need for a contest. He goes on to say that this is the first time he's heard this directly from a cabinet minister. Well, he's also wrote this on X. Cabinet minister tells me they are now confident a leadership challenge will be triggered this week. And it doesn't end there. LBC journalist Andrew Marr has said on X, it appears to be happening. Wes ready to move, and perhaps Angela as well. And breaking in the last hour, the far-left MP for Norwich South has thrown his weight behind Andy Burnham in a very long post on X. So, would Clive Lewis be willing to stand aside as soon as tomorrow, perhaps, to let Andy Burnham stand for Parliament? I think now, with a high degree of confidence, I'm willing to say and reiterate that I think the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will resign this week and act as a caretaker in the meantime. The question is, will he do it without a leadership challenge being triggered, or will he go before he's pushed? I can also say one more thing on behalf of Britain.
And so there you have it. Now, what's interesting to me is essentially, when you boil it all down, Keir Starmer really doesn't have many options before him. He can either resign and they can allow Angela Rayner or somebody else to take up the role of Prime Minister. But the Labour Party itself, because of its platform and because where it sets in the, if you will, kind of overall trajectory and picture of modern politics on an international scale, doesn't have much chance of success. The reason that Labour ultimately was voted into power was due to the fact that the Tory government, the Conservative government, was not actually conservative and failed in many of its promises. It ultimately did not lower taxes. It definitely did not stop mass migration, illegal or legal, to take place, particularly under people who, at the time were considered, by various segments of British media as extremely far right. People like Boris Johnson, who wasn't very right wing at all when it came to particularly his immigration policy, as well as his, if you will, neocon spirit when it came to engaging in warfare in Eastern Europe with the Russians and Ukrainians. Now, that being said, because they were voted out, Labour ended up gaining, the vast majority, 411 seats, I believe, in the House of Commons. And the reason it got this was not because Labour was seen as this shining beacon of conservatism or reform. Not so much. It was seen as a better than the other guy, if you will. It can't be worse, right, than the guys who have been in charge and have messed up the country for 14 plus years. You also have the additional fact that the Reform Party was this was the first major election in which they actually had some serious viability it had somewhere around 5 million in their own popular vote. And so it ended up splitting the, quote, right wing segments of British politics into two. Now, what's interesting about this is Labor, when it is in power, historically speaking, it's like the Democrats here in the United States. When they're in power, they use it, unlike conservatives. The problem with both sides of the pond in American politics and British politics is generally the people who claim to be right wing don't actually do anything when they actually have attained power. The Republicans in the United States act oftentimes like parents of bad children. And what I mean by that is the children go screaming, they can tear stuff up, they can set the house on fire, and the parent doesn't punish them. It's this scenario. You've seen it a million times. Maybe you're in church, maybe you're at the post office, maybe you're at the library, who knows where you are. And there's that parent out there who has their toddler who's just screaming the whole time. And rather than taking them outside and disciplining them or trying to calm them down, they just allow their children to act disorderly. And that's how the Republican Party oftentimes acts when it comes to the Democrats. The Democrats can set fires inside of Capitol buildings, like we saw last week with the Tennessee legislature. And it doesn't really matter because, hey, we don't want to appear racist. They're still on that nonsensical line. It's like, what is this, 2004? Like, what age are these people operating under? But then additionally, when it comes to British politics, it's the same thing. The Conservative Party there is conservative in name only. It, like, at best gives a bit of lip service to lower economics, but that's about it. It doesn't have any conservatism when it comes to any social issues, and which is one of the reasons that the United Kingdom right now, is suffering when it comes to its own birth rates, and one reason why Labour ultimately does want, and the Greens do want, a massive amount of migrants to come into the country to replace the falling birth rate and things along that nature. So ultimately, my hat goes off to the third parties, especially I really appreciate Restore. I don't diss Reform, although I have some reservations about elements of it. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But if you're to get a serious right-wing government in there, you need to do the following. And this is true for the United States as well, because the Republican Party in the United States, while better than the other guys by far in many areas, is not really a party that fights for the Constitution as it was originally intended. The British people, in effect, don't have a serious constitution. Americans, we have a almost immutable constitution, which is amazing. The problem is that no one follows it. So it's an immutable law that no one cares about. In Britain, the Constitution is extremely fluid, depending on who actually has any type of serious power. And so if you actually have a serious right-wing government, props off to you. But you need to actually make institutional changes. Things along the nature of, number one, restoring some type of actual sane constitutional authority to your government instead of the, bureaucratic state that we in the United States and you guys have had. Two, you need to seriously cut taxes and get rid of massive amount of welfare programs. That's the same for the United States, by the way. One of the biggest problems that we have in the States is the fact that because we have refused to do mass deportations at a large number, and because we have so many social programs, which are unconstitutional, by the way. They're not in the Constitution. These are egregious overreaches of the federal government the sovereign state should be protesting against, but unfortunately they're hooked like an addict on drugs. But because these things exist, young people can't afford anything. We just looked at a study not too long ago. The fact is that the majority now of individuals in the United States, that there's now more individuals who are home sellers than home buyers. Why? Mass migration. Because they're all here. Supply and demand, basic capitalism. If we don't have a large amount of supply, then there is not going to be a great, the demand cannot be met, in other words. It's the same thing in the UK. They struggle with the same issue when it comes to housing, but on a worse scale because they happen to be an island. So ultimately, yeah, you have to do that. Mass deportations, actually get your constitution back into order, mass tax cuts and deregulation. These things will help your society. And also, props off to the British people, in particular, the legitimate right wing over there, who are actually fighting also for a principle of saying, well, what does it actually mean to be a British person? Can a Somalian or a Pakistani just live in Liverpool for 5 minutes and then, because they have a piece of paper that says they're a citizen, does that make them British? Well, no, it obviously doesn't. In the same way that if I was to move to Japan, I might become a Japanese citizen, but I will never be fully Japanese. That type of discussion we in America have been lacking for a long time. We're starting to actually have it again, which is good, but we need to push it further. So, props off to all of the right wingers. Good luck to Tommy Robinson out there. I hope he succeeds and they have a wonderful rally. What are your thoughts, my friends? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd be happy to hear your guys' thoughts. Make sure and like this video, subscribe to the show, and share this show with your friends. Coming up in my next episode for today, covering truly a very disturbed individual. I believe his channel name is Anti-Shay or something like that. Anti-Shay. He is known for posting absolute fiery trash videos on the American Civil War. And if you guys know me, I am a Civil War teacher, and so I find his videos quite offensive. But he's come out and he's now calling for the death of all white people. And he talks about why he castrated himself, which I won't give away, but it's really off the wall and it's making its rounds over on X. So you want to definitely stay tuned for that. Subscribe for the show for when that video comes out. God bless you guys and have a wonderful day.